I do get the Ramona scent. Because I got to keep track of you people. You're dangerous, and I love it.
Yeah.
In every community from here, and I just picked up a new station in Orlando, and the week before we picked up one in Albany, and we're slowly making our way into all of these places where we need to rally groups just like this, because there's something else I'm going to do, and I want to describe it to you this fall. But first, let me just tell you what we're up against at the FCC, because Jim said you ought to talk about the fairness doctrine. You remember the fairness doctrine. The idea was, as explained, that if you had this opinion on, you had to have the opposite opinion on. And on the surface, nothing wrong with that. We have opinions all day long on talk radio. And I love it when liberals call in because they're so damn stupid. Have you listened to some of these callers? And you know, people criticize me, but I let them go on. The longer they go on, the more I think it makes my point. I don't have to speak anymore. You listen to some of these people? Several generations of public education, and I'm sorry, they can't complete a sentence. Ronald Reagan put an end to the fairness doctrine in the 1980s when he decreed that the only thing fair was competition. The consumer, the listener, had the right to decide what would be on the air. If you don't like it, it isn't going to stay there. If you don't listen to it, the owner's going to move to something else you will listen to. There was a time when the #1 radio personality in this country was Arthur Godfrey. Do you remember that time?
Yeah, that
was a while. No, you don't. You're too young to remember. Arthur Godfrey was he was a god of radio. All right? And before that, people listened to little novellas, little dramas. What am I trying to say? It's a Saturday. Dramas. You know, like The Shadow and all that kind of stuff. Remember all that stuff?
Yeah.
So radio's gone through a lot of different changes, hasn't it? I mean, stuff you listen to, the top 40 AM radio stations of the 1960s went to the FM, and then the FM because the music sounded better, and AM went into the doldrums, and then along came Rush Limbaugh, who's twice as big as Arthur Godfrey. And he started in Sacramento, trying to figure that one out. So, and the reason he's successful is because, again, he produced something that people wanted to listen to. In America, you have a chance to produce something people want to listen to. If they don't, then you fail and you move on to something else. But radio's always been a threat. Anybody remember the name Father Coughlin? Father Coughlin in the 1930s was a pain in the neck to Franklin Roosevelt and to a lot of Americans. He chose a certain way of preaching what he thought was true, and many people believed what he said. Many people didn't believe what he said. It was very controversial. They tried to run him off radio because he was controversial. People in those days had a very strong feeling about the First Amendment. I may never listen to Father Coughlin, but doesn't he have a right to be heard? Because a lot of people do listen to him. So from that time, there was this feeling, no, we can't let people get a hold of the public imagination who aren't controlled by the ruling elites. So we've got to have this fairness doctrine and equal time and that kind of stuff, right? So, 1980s, Ronald Reagan said, look, there's hundreds of radio stations. There's soon going to be thousands of them. There's soon going to be hundreds and hundreds of TV stations. There's going to be more choice than you could possibly shake a stick at, because technology is exploding the range of our choices when it comes to TV and radio, right? Has cable gotten out here yet? Do you know what I'm talking about? I know you do. All right, so anyway, you see what I'm saying? I mean, I turn on my TV and I literally don't know what to do. There's 700 stations on my TV. And all the radio, by the way, is all on the TV too. You can listen to radio and you can listen to music and you can select the kind of music you want. It's amazing how many choices there are. Choice is what America's all about.
Yeah.
Choice.
There we go.
Now the liberals hate that. So this guy on the FCC and John Podesta's group, Center for Progress, they put out this paper. They said, here's the problem. You've got all those right-wingers owning these radio stations. We've got to have an affirmative action program to give licenses. We've got to take licenses away from people who own them now because they're not being fair about their programming, and we're going to give them to this group over here of selected and approved minorities. And they have a whole list of them. They actually have a committee of these people. Jesse Jackson is on this committee. And people like that, who are in line to get radio licenses because of the color of their skin. This is what the liberals want to do. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. But this is their policy. Now they're going to get after the ownership. Then they're going to get after us. They want each station to put up a committee of activists, of underrepresented folks, I'm using their vocabulary obviously, of people who should be in control but aren't because of the oppressive old white people. You know, that mentality, okay? So we're going to get this street activist, open border, crazy people on this committee. And then they are going to monitor what they hear on that radio station. And if they don't like it, they complain. And during the complaint process, of course, the owner is totally intimidated because the complaint process could lead to the revocation of the license, the broadcast license, because sometime back we made a mistake. Sometime back in the 20s we made a mistake about radio. We decided that it was public airwaves. It's no such thing. The radio spectrum was discovered by somebody, an inventor, a scientist, people in the private sector. Suddenly it became public airwaves. The only reason we allowed government to open the door, to put the camel's nose in the tent, was because we didn't want people on the same frequencies, because there's a frequency band, right? And you don't want 5 people on 810 because then it's all garbled and you never get a clear signal. So you want to move them over to 814 and 816 and 818 so you get clear signals. So somebody had to be the umpire. Well, the umpire decided he was going to change the rules of the game. The umpire decided he was going to decide who gets to play the game. The umpire has now decided that he doesn't like some of the people who are playing the game by the economic rules of the free market, so they're going to be removed and some other people are going to be put in. The umpire is taking over. That's what the fairness doctrine is about. And that's why its resurrection is not going to be called the fairness doctrine. Its resurrection is going to be called something else. It's going to be called something that has to do with the fairness of the ownership, the fairness of the local programming. Local content is going to become one of the phrases. We need a lot more local content. These syndicated guys come in, and they don't know the community. We need local community people. Now, which syndicated guys do you think they have in mind? The liberal syndicated guys, I'll tell you right now. So they're going to attack this thing in the FCC now over the course of a number of months to come, because I have decided to become their worst nightmare.
Thank you.
Their worst nightmare is that we'll suddenly stop talking and start doing. Their worst nightmare is that after all of us get educated about all these things that are in these bills, wait till you hear about financial regulation, and wait till you hear about the Disclose Act, and wait till you hear about all this stuff coming up. When all this comes out in talk radio, this fall I'm going to stop talking. I've already started in Las Vegas last week to take the show to an affiliate station in a state where we need to make a change. Harry Reid needs to retire.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go down to Tucson in August. I'm going to pick the worst month to go to. I'm a beach guy. I'm going to go to Tucson in August, and I'm going to ask all of you to come with me. It's August 5th, and we're going to insist that John McCain be retired.
Yeah.